What happens when the woman who has everything realizes she actually has absolutely nothing? On a brutal, freezing Christmas Eve in Boston, Vanessa Hastings, a self-made billionaire CEO famous for ruthless corporate takeovers, sat completely alone inside her $50 million penthouse. Her investment portfolios held billions, but her phone didn't contain a single person who truly cared about her. That night, a catastrophic blizzard would force her out of her isolated ivory tower and onto the unforgiving streets of Boston. She thought she was fighting to survive the storm. She had no idea a desperate single father and his 6-year-old daughter were about to shatter her entire reality and expose a secret that would change all of their lives forever. The silence inside the penthouse wasn't peaceful. It was deafening. Vanessa Hastings stood beside the floor-to-ceiling windows of her 72nd floor apartment, a crystal tumbler of scotch resting loosely in her perfectly manicured hand. Below her, Boston glittered with Christmas lights and holiday cheer. Up here, there was only emptiness. The air smelled of expensive leather and recycled climate control. There were no pine needles, no cinnamon candles, no wrapping paper scattered across marble floors. Only Vanessa. At 44, she was the undisputed queen of Hastings Global, a corporate empire that swallowed struggling companies, cut away what it considered dead weight, and flipped them for astronomical profit. The media called her visionary. Her competitors called her a machine. Tonight, staring into the swirling snow outside her window, she felt exactly like one. 3 days earlier, she had finalized the acquisition of North Star Logistics, a regional shipping company drowning in debt. The numbers had been simple, cold, brutal. To save the company, she had authorized the termination of 3,000 employees. She signed the digital authorization with a single click. 3,000 people lost their jobs days before Christmas. At the time, she told herself it was business, fiduciary duty, the reality of the market. But now, in the crushing silence of her penthouse, those excuses felt hollow. Her assistant had left hours earlier to spend Christmas with her husband and newborn baby. Vanessa had handed her a generous holiday bonus, but the interaction felt painfully transactional. Because Vanessa had no family waiting for her, no husband, no children, her parents were gone, and years earlier she had destroyed her relationship with her sister during a bitter legal battle over their father's estate. As the storm intensified outside, a sudden wave of claustrophobia tightened around her chest. The penthouse no longer felt luxurious. It felt like a tomb. She needed air. She needed to feel something real. Grabbing an oversized cashmere coat worth more than most people's cars, Vanessa headed down to the underground garage and climbed into her vintage Porsche 911. She ignored her driver's number. He had a family too. Within minutes, the storm transformed into a full whiteout blizzard. Snow hammered the windshield as Vanessa drove aimlessly through the city, eventually drifting far from Boston's wealthy neighborhoods and toward the industrial dock district. That was her first mistake. Her second was ignoring the blinking fuel light. As she navigated a dark stretch of road lined with abandoned warehouses, the Porsche suddenly sputtered, coughed, and died. The tires hit black ice. The car spun violently before slamming backward into a massive snowbank. Vanessa gripped the steering wheel, heart pounding. She turned the key, nothing, just dead clicks. She grabbed her phone, no signal. The temperature inside the car dropped rapidly as icy wind pushed through the cracks in the doors. For the first time in her adult life, Vanessa Hastings, the woman who controlled billions, was completely powerless. Minutes passed. Snow buried the windshield. The cold began creeping into her bones. Panic finally pierced her carefully controlled composure. And then, through the swirling darkness, a pair of headlights appeared. Vanessa stumbled out into the snow, waving desperately as an old rusted Subaru Outback pulled to the side of the road. The passenger window rolled down. Behind the wheel sat a man in his early 30s wearing a faded flannel jacket over a gray hoodie. Exhaustion lined his face, but his eyes carried something unexpected: kindness. In the backseat sat a little girl bundled in a pink coat, clutching a cardboard star wrapped in aluminum foil. "Are you out of your mind out here?" the man shouted over the wind. "Get in before you freeze to death." Vanessa hesitated only a second before climbing into the backseat beside the child. "Thank you," she whispered through chattering teeth. "Lucky we took the back roads," the man said, turning the heater up. "Interstate's a disaster." He glanced at her in the mirror. "I'm Leon, and this is Maya." Maya proudly held up her foil star. "I'm making this for our Christmas tree," she said brightly. "If we get one." Leon's smile faded for a split second before he forced it back. Vanessa noticed, and for reasons she couldn't explain, it bothered her. Leon explained that every road back into downtown Boston had been shut down by the storm. Instead, they were heading to a small diner owned by a friend. "It's warm, it's got coffee, and the generator still works," he said. "You're welcome to wait out the storm with us." 20 minutes later, they arrived at Hank's Grill, a nearly empty roadside diner glowing beneath flickering neon lights. Inside, warmth and the smell of coffee wrapped around them instantly. Vanessa slid into a cracked vinyl booth across from Leon and Maya while the waitress brought over coffee and hot chocolate. For the first time in years, nobody in the room knew who she was. And strangely, it felt good. Maya pushed a blue crayon and a paper placemat toward Vanessa. "Do you want to color?" she asked. "Daddy says coloring helps when your head gets too loud." Vanessa stared at the crayon. She couldn't remember the last time she had held one. Slowly, she picked it up. "What are we drawing?" she asked softly. "A house," Maya replied. "Daddy says we might have to move soon, so I'm designing our new one." Vanessa looked up at Leon. His eyes dropped instantly toward his coffee. The silence said everything. After a long pause, Leon finally spoke. "The landlord raised the rent a few months ago," he admitted quietly. "I was barely keeping up, until this week." "You lost your job?" Vanessa asked. Leon nodded. 3 days ago. Mass email. Locked our keycards by noon. No severance, nothing." Vanessa felt a strange knot tighten in her chest. "What industry?" "Logistics," Leon answered bitterly. "North Star Logistics." The blue crayon snapped in Vanessa's hand. Her blood ran cold. North Star, 3,000 employees, mass termination emails. She had signed those papers herself. Leon kept talking, unaware. "I worked there for 8 years, he said. "Started in the warehouse. Worked my way up after my wife passed away. Everything I did was for Maya." Vanessa could barely breathe. The little girl drawing dream houses across from her. The exhausted father trying to hold his life together. These weren't numbers on a spreadsheet. These were real people, and she had destroyed their lives. Then Leon said the words that shattered her completely. "Hastings Global bought us out. Some billionaire CEO decided we were too expensive and gutted the company right before Christmas." Vanessa lowered her eyes to the table, terrified he would recognize her. But before she could escape, the television mounted in the corner suddenly switched to a breaking news report. The screen filled with footage of angry North Star employees protesting in the snow. Then came the headline, "Vanessa Hastings, CEO of Hastings Global." Her corporate portrait appeared on screen. The diner fell silent. Leon stared at the television. Then slowly, he turned toward her. He looked at her expensive coat, her jewelry, her terrified face, and in that instant, he knew. The warmth disappeared from his expression completely. "Maya," he said quietly, never taking his eyes off Vanessa. "Put your coat on, Leon, please," Vanessa whispered desperately. "Let me explain. You ruined us," he said coldly. "Do you even understand what people like you do to families like mine?" Vanessa tried to defend herself with corporate logic, financial necessity, restructuring, quarterly projections, but even she could hear how empty the words sounded now. Then Leon revealed something that changed everything. He explained that before the layoffs, he had uncovered evidence of massive fraud inside North Star Logistics. $50 million in missing inventory, fake shipping manifests, offshore shell companies, and every trail led back to one person, Sterling Brooks, Vanessa's own CFO. Leon had compiled a 70-page report and sent it directly to Brooks days earlier. 12 hours later, 3,000 employees were fired, not to save the company, to silence anyone who could expose the theft. The truth hit Vanessa like a freight train. She hadn't just destroyed innocent lives. She had been manipulated into doing it. Used as the face of a massive corporate cover-up. Leon grabbed Maya's hand and stood. "We're leaving. You can't go back out there," Vanessa said, panic rising in her voice. "The storm will kill you." "I'd rather freeze," Leon replied bitterly, "than sit across from the woman who stole my daughter's home." As he pushed open the diner door, icy wind exploded inside. Then Vanessa made a choice that changed everything. "Wait," she shouted. Leon stopped. "Give me 20 minutes, she pleaded. "If you walk out that door, Brooks wins." Leon stared at her silently. Vanessa's eyes hardened with a determination even she hadn't felt in years. "I'm going to destroy my own company before I let him get away with this." She marched to the back office of the diner and grabbed the ancient rotary phone sitting on the desk. One call changed everything. Within minutes, her head of security mobilized emergency teams to raid Sterling Brooks's office, seize financial records, and contact federal investigators. Then Vanessa issued another order: reinstate every terminated employee immediately, restore payroll, issue each employee a $5,000 holiday bonus. Her security chief warned her the board might remove her as CEO. Vanessa didn't care. For the first time in years, she wasn't protecting profits, she was protecting people. When she returned to the diner, Leon sat silently beside Maya. Vanessa knelt beside the little girl and carefully helped smooth the wrinkles from her crushed foil star. "It's going to look beautiful on your tree," she said softly. Then she looked at Leon. "By midnight tonight, every North Star employee gets their job back." Leon stared at her in disbelief. "And there's something else," Vanessa continued. "You can't go back to being regional manager." Leon frowned. "Why not?" "Because North Star needs a new CEO." Silence filled the diner. "You exposed $50 million in fraud when nobody else had the courage to speak up," Vanessa said. "You know the company, you know the people, and you still chose integrity after everything you lost." She slid a business card across the table. "The job is yours, if you want it." Leon's eyes filled with tears. For the first time all night, the crushing weight on his shoulders finally lifted. Hours passed as the storm slowly faded outside, and for the first time in her life, Vanessa Hastings stopped networking, stopped negotiating, stopped calculating. She simply listened, to Leon's stories about his late wife, to Maya's dreams of becoming an architect, to the sound of genuine human connection. By sunrise, the blizzard had passed. The roads were clear, and something inside Vanessa had changed forever. 1 year later, snow drifted gently over a quiet Boston suburb. Inside a warm colonial-style home with a giant chimney and a backyard covered in Christmas lights, Maya laughed as she tore through wrapping paper beside a golden retriever puppy. In the kitchen, Leon Sullivan, now CEO of North Star Logistics, poured coffee into 2 mugs. Across the living room floor sat Vanessa. No laptop, no stock reports, no corporate armor, just a woman helping a little girl build a Lego set beside a glowing Christmas tree. The cold billionaire who once believed wealth was measured in dollars had finally learned the truth. Real wealth is found in the people willing to pull you out of the cold when the storm arrives.